Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Dave and welcome to Workshop Wednesday. And in fact it's not even Wednesday, but we are going to be in the workshop doing some work today on my mini truck. Now regular viewers of the channel would have seen my little mini farm truck in some previous videos. I think the first one was when I first picked up the truck from the importer and I ran through that process and indicated the costs of doing that. The second video I did was on trying to source some aftermarket wheels and tyres. My little truck did come with 12-inch wheels and the tyres were absolutely shot, so I had to find an alternative to do that. And the third video was when I put the airbag suspension on the back. Not that you can see it there, but it is under there somewhere, so you can go back and have a look at those videos on my mini truck. The model of this is a Mitsubishi Minicab. It's from 1996, which is a fair while ago. The model number is U42T, and the reason I bought this little truck is that it's got a tipper body that was put in aftermarket onto here, so it's like having a 6x4 box trailer with an engine, if you like. It's fantastic, it's very versatile. I love using it, and I would think out of most of the, let's say, major equipment on my farm, and if that includes the John Deere tractor and the UHI mini digger and the truck, I think I probably use this little truck more than the tractor and the excavator combined, so it certainly gets a lot of use. Now, why are we doing the timing belt on this truck today? Well, the reason for that is when these little vehicles come in from Japan, you get very limited documentation. Usually they don't have any service books on them indicating what work has been done in their life. And when I bought this truck, I was a bit worried because at the time it had done 101,000 kilometers, which is like 60,000 miles. And I asked the importer, had the timing belt been changed, and he couldn't find any information in his documentation to say it had. So that sort of had me a little bit concerned, to say the least. But I was surprised when I looked at the truck and I looked in the engine bay here, and down here there is a silver label there indicating that the timing belt had been changed in 2017 at 57,000 kilometers. Now that meant that this little truck ran for 21 years without having the timing belt changed, which I don't think I would normally do that. But anyway, it was done in 2017. It's only done less than 50,000 kilometers since it was changed, so I'm pretty sure the belt's probably not so bad. But just for peace of mind, I'm actually going to change it today. And I'm also going to do the water pump. I've got a new water pump for it, and I'm going to put in a new thermostat as well. Plus do an oil change and just a couple of other general service items. Anyway, that's what we're going to be doing today, and it's just currently between Christmas and New Year. It's the week of holidays, if you like. There's not a lot on at the minute, so I thought it'd be a good chance to get into the workshop. So, righto, let's make some room and get it in. And as usual, I have to do a bit of a shuffling around of cars to get my little truck up on the hoist up there. I've got to move these two out of the way already, and I've just been actually doing some work yesterday on my wife's MGB that she's got here. We were away for 2 months, and when I got back I went to drive it and the clutch didn't work, so I've just been in there, it's all a bit dark, isn't it, replacing the clutch master cylinder and the slave cylinder in this to get this going again. And the other vehicle up here currently on the hoist, which I've got to move, is my Mini Moke, and this is a 1978, I think this model Mini Moke is. I've been restoring this for a couple of years, actually more than a couple, and I really need to finish it off and either drive it or sell it, one of the two. I don't include sort of videos on working on vehicles like this so far on the channel. I don't know if it's of any interest to anybody, but if you think it may be interesting to show some of this stuff working on old cars, and then yeah, drop a comment in the description below the video, and yeah, we'll see where we go. Anyway, right, so first thing I have to move this one to move that one. Sure, I'm not going to hit anything on the way out. Right. a 1967 model MGB. I love this car because I didn't do any work on it. I actually had a couple of minis that I sold, you know, traditional sort of mini miners, and I'd sold them and was a bit sick of working on cars, and I found this one which somebody else had restored, which made it even better. But yeah, beautiful car, all original engine, matching numbers car. Very nice to drive on a sunny day, go out to the vineyards for a wine or two. And this is the engine bay of the Mini Moke. As you can see, it's almost ready to go. I've spent quite a bit of time completely redoing the whole engine. I rebuilt the engine, resprayed the whole car, did all the panel beating. It's all got new master cylinders, all the wiring is new. And it's just about ready to go. It just needs a little bit of time spent on it, and I keep sort of pushing it to the side and doing other projects, but I really need to get this one finished as well. Okay, there's the sticker they put on when they last changed the timing belt, 2017. So where I have to get into is down here. I've got to take this this cover off here. There's not a lot of room. I'm thinking about whether to take the radiator out to give myself a little bit more room. I think what I'll do first is probably just take this center console area out, and that might just give me a little bit more room to move. So let's get that out first, I think. Okay, you can see there that I've taken the fan shroud off. You can see the fan. I think the next thing I'll do is there's 4 bolts on the back of that fan that attach it to the water pump. So I think I'll take those off and then see how much room I've got in there, whether I've got to take my radiator out. I've got my center console here just suspended with a strap out of the way. That's all pretty good. And then now I can see where my thermostat housing is, so I've got easy access to that as well. Okay, well, I couldn't get my socket to turn the bolt on the end of the crank here, on the crank pulley, so I've gone to my air gun thing here to try and get it off, and I had to take the radiator out to get enough distance here to put it in, and hopefully this will get it out. Let's see. Oh, yeah. That's got it. That's good. Okay, so the cover is off, and now I just need to put my crank bolt back in here and then rotate the engine, and there's 2 timing marks down here and down there. I have to rotate until they line up, and there's also another mark up the top up here, and then I just want to actually test how much tension there is on the belt. It's supposed to be about 11 or 12 millimeters of movement, I think, on these belts, so just having a look at what it is there. And next plan of attack then is to get rid of this loosen off this timing belt tensioner here. So undo that nut there, and that tensioner will come back, take that spring off, and then once all the timing marks are aligned at the bottom and at the top up here, I'll just leave that so it's all timed, and then I'll just slip the belt off. And once the belt's off, then I'll get into these water pump bolts here and remove the water pump. Water pump bolts aren't very tight. Okay, just let's have a quick look at the parts that I've taken off so far. So that's the water pump that has come off. You can see there that it still looks in really good nick. It's only done about 45,000 kilometres, about 26,000 miles. It's been on for about 7 years, but the coolant was really good in the system, and I can't see any signs of any corrosion or anything there at all. So I am going to keep this water pump as a spare. The new one I bought, slightly different brand, but similar design. The impellers look a little bit different the way it's laid out on the inside, but I'm going to put one of those on as well. The old tensioner here, you can see here, it's got quite a shiny face to it there. The bearing itself was fine, wasn't any trouble spinning. I'm going to replace that. And one thing I did notice is with the new tensioner that it is a little bit wider there. If I can just put this one on the top and show you, maybe you can see the difference in the width there, and I wondered why that was until I actually looked at the timing belt. And if I look at the old timing belt first, this is the one that came off. There's no branding or anything on this. I don't know what make it was, but if you look on the top of it here, you can see that it's all quite shiny still. There's no signs of any perishing on that. If I turn on the inside here, you can see that all still looks fine. So that timing belt has done 45,000 kilometres and it still looks in good condition. But I'm not going to keep that. Well, I suppose I could keep it, but I don't know if I'd ever put it back on. My new timing belt I have, this one's called a Power Ridge. It's made by Bando Chemical Industries. This came out of Japan, this one. And this is my new timing belt there. And what I noticed is this belt here, the width of that was slightly wider than the old one, and that's why the tensioner is slightly wider as well. Now, why would they make it a little bit wider? I don't know. Maybe they had a problem or something with the old ones and they've made the new ones slightly wider than the original ones. Not too sure. Anyway, that's the timing belt, cam belt, so that's going to go in. The other things I took off were some fan belts or V-belts, and there's two sorts here. This is the one that runs the, this one runs the AC. My little truck has air conditioning in it. And this one is, they're quite small belts, they're only about 28 inches in length. And I managed to find this one locally. It wasn't such a problem. This is a regular width of belt, it's about 12 millimetres, a bit over 12 millimetres, so like a half-inch type belt. That one I could get okay. The other one that runs the alternator belt, I haven't been able to get a replacement for this one. This is a very narrow belt. It's like 9.5, maybe 10 millimetres. Again, it's a very short belt, about 27, 28 inches. And I haven't been able to find a replacement locally for this, and I guess I really should have bought new belts when I got all the other pieces. But anyway, I found one locally, and I'll just have to keep a lookout on the internet for the other one, or wait till I order some more parts. Now, all of these parts here, the new parts came from Yokohama Motors. So I've used Yokohama Motors and Megazip in Japan for buying parts for my mini truck. My experience with Megazip is they have two warehouses in the United Arab Emirates and also Japan somewhere. If you order parts out of the United Arab Emirates, then it seems to take quite a long time for them to process the order and to get the parts. So I have had quite long delays getting parts from Megazip. These parts actually came from Yokohama Motors on this order, and they were pretty good. They were pretty quick. They turned up within about sort of 7 days of ordering. The biggest hassle, I guess, for anybody here in Australia ordering mini truck parts from Japan is just the cost of the freight will kill you. I got the new water pump, I got the tensioner, I got a new timing belt and also a set of brake pads, and the cost just for the delivery or the postage was something like $165. That's really expensive. I really wish there was a local supplier of mini truck parts here in Australia. Okay, I've got my gasket here now from the water pump, and I'm going to put a little bit of sealant on there. So I've got this Loctite 5923. It's an aviation sealant. It's a bit like a Permatex number 2 aviation sealant. Now, I guess there's different thoughts about whether you should put a sealant or coating on these gaskets. I know a lot of people don't and they don't worry about it. Just let that go a little bit tacky for a couple of minutes and then I'll do the other side. That's all right. I don't want to put it on too thick, obviously, but no, I think that'll be fine. Just let that set up for a while. Okay, I'm just going to put the water pump back in. I'll just make sure that there's nothing down there that I've stuffed in the hole. But I think we're all right, so I've just got to work out how to get this in nice and square so my gasket doesn't move. That's good. Long one there. Just making sure my gasket hasn't moved. Which I think it's all right. A couple of shorter ones. Just get my 10mm socket, and I'm just going to tighten these up, but not super tight, just till it hits the surface. And I'll just wait for that gasket sealant to dry off a little bit, and then I'll tighten them up. Over here. And this one. Okay, I'm going to move along now to the thermostat housing, and I'm going to remove this and take the thermostat out and replace it. And the reason for that is I've noticed when I've been driving this little truck that it always runs on the cold side on the temp gauge in the cabin. And I think what it is I can see here that the temperature sender is on the top of this thermostat housing. And I think the reason that it's showing that it's cold is because the thermostat inside here isn't opening and allowing that water to circulate through the engine back to the radiator, that it's just sensing the temperature on the top part of this hose here before it opens. I've got a new thermostat, so I think I'll take this off and we'll put a new thermostat in. There's a couple of 10mm on the top here. See some sealant around this thermostat, so I think this has probably been replaced at some stage. Take that out. Put that somewhere where I'll forget it. Okay, and it should just come off. Okay, I'll just put my new thermostat in. This is 82 degrees C thermostat. It's the same temp as the old one I took out, and I'll just put it back in the same position that it was with the telltale facing the back. Make sure it's sitting in the groove there. Put my gasket on the top. There we are. That's better. Much better. Okay. Now I did mention before, just looking down here again at the timing marks, that they are very hard to see. They're very hard to see because directly in front of here is the housing for the four-wheel drive system for the front axle assembly, so you can't actually get your head in line to look at these marks. But what I have noticed is, looking at this, is there is a line on the front here of the gear drive, and there's also a line that's been moulded into the casing here where this mount for the plastic cover is, and I'm just wondering if they put that in there as a secondary type of way to check that the timing is correct, because it is really hard. I've been using a mirror to try and look in there to find the proper mark. I did, when I got my parts from Yokohama Motors, I did try and get new gears for the oil pump. The oil gears sit behind this cover here, comes off, and there's two meshing gears behind there. I did order them. They said they were available on the website, but Yokohama Motors emailed me back and said that they couldn't get them, that Mitsubishi didn't make them anymore, so I'm not going to replace those at this stage. Okay, let's start putting it back together. So the first thing I've got is my spring for the tensioner, which has to go in. Spring was a bit more. That's a little tight. There we are. Just going to take the tension off while I can get the belt on, so I just need to somehow try and get this up there, and then I'll lock that. There. And then try this again. I think I need to start with the crank sprocket. It's got to sit in quite deep in there, and then get it to come with that one. I think that's it. And then what do? Come up here, make sure that's going to engage the top there somewhere, and then it's still tight. The trouble I had with the tensioner was that the extra size of the tensioner was now hitting up against the water pump, which is creating a little bit of a drama. Oh, I think that's got it there. Now my timing mark down here is okay. I think this one's still alright. Now I think if I undo this nut, it'll take that slack out of there. So let's just try that. Okay, if I just release this, it should tension. Yep. And that should be it. Right, I'll just have a bit of a bo peep and check all my timing marks. Okay, so I've checked the timing marks are in the right position and the belt is on, the tensioner is down. You can see up here, I think maybe up the top of the frame here, there's a white mark where the timing mark is here, so that's all right, that hasn't moved. So now I'm just going to rotate the engine, give it a couple of turns and just get the marks back where they were. Oh, past the compression stroke. And just make sure that the marks go back on the same spot. Just going back to my original marks here. Right there. It's on that mark there, that's good. Just chip down in there again. Yep, that's all good. Okay, so that's done a complete revolution of the engine and the marks are still lining up, so I'm pretty sure that all my sprockets and everything are in the right position. All my 3 timing marks are the same, so that's good. I think that's about right. I've just got a ruler in here and I'm just going to measure what the play on the belt is. So it's got to be about 11 or 12 and I'm getting about 11, so I think that'll be all right. And I'll just re-tighten this. Okay, I think that is the belt back on. Okay, well all that's on. I'm pretty happy that timing belt's got the right tension on it and it's in all the right marks, so I'll just go ahead now and put the radiator and the fan back in. Okay, that's it, it's all back together, it's all nice and clean. And the most satisfying thing about doing your own home maintenance is to look at where you had all your tools and all your parts and to make sure that there's nothing that you've missed. Okay, well I'm pretty sure that it's all gone back the right way. There were no leftover parts, so that's always a good thing. Let's try it and see whether it starts. Fingers crossed. Ready? Sounds good. Alright, I'll just let this warm up for a couple of minutes and then I'll do an oil change. I'll check the fluids and then we'll take it for a drive. It's about now. You ask yourself, did I put that bottom hose on or not? Okay, so while I'm out doing a bit of a test drive after replacing that timing belt, I just thought I'd go over a couple of topics that might be of interest for people that are thinking about buying a mini truck or already have a mini truck. The first thing would be is when you purchase a mini truck, yes, you can buy it from an auction directly from Japan yourself. I chose to use an importer here in Australia to bring the vehicle in, and they took care of all the transport costs, all the quarantine costs, all those sort of things that were involved. The importer did for me, because when you're buying from an auction directly, you don't get all the information on the vehicle. The photographs they send you are pretty blurry. You can't really see a lot of detail, and you don't actually know where the vehicle has come from. And why I say that is because if you buy a vehicle in the southern part of Japan, which is where my truck came from, then there's less snow, there's less salt on the roads, and they're less rusty. If you buy a vehicle in the northern part of the country, then chances are it could have a lot more rust in it, and you can't really tell by just looking at the photographs and the information that you get from the auction houses. So for me, I would suggest buying it from an importer. When I bought this truck 2 years ago, they were pretty uncommon. You didn't see many of them on the road. I do now, in the last 6 to 12 months, see a lot more of the newer ones that are out now. And there's a couple of importers now in Australia that bring out the latest model Daihatsu Jumbos and Hi-Jets and things like that. You have to be mindful of the weight that you can carry in these little trucks. They are only rated for 350 kilograms payload, which isn't a lot. But when you put any sort of weight in the back of these little trucks, they do slow down really quick. And if you're going up an incline, they really slow down quickly, almost to a stage where it could be dangerous for people behind you, because all of a sudden you almost come to a stop in some cases. So you have to be careful about the weight you carry, how much you carry in a single trip. Now, the other thing I'd like to mention is, if you are buying a vehicle, if you're buying particularly an older vehicle from, say, the late 80s or early 90s, then a lot of the vehicles, especially the Suzuki Carries back then, only had a 5-digit speedo, which means that when it got to 99,999, it would trip back over to 0. And I see a lot of ads for like a 1988 Suzuki Carry. It's only done 15,000 kilometers, and I would say that's absolute rubbish. There's no way that a 40-year-old vehicle could have done 15,000 kilometers, not even in Japan. It's probably done 115,000, 215,000, maybe 315,000 Ks. And that's why it's important, if you buy an older vehicle, that you pay particular attention when you get it to changing things like the timing belt. Is pretty important. If it hasn't been done, change the timing belt. These are a interference engine, which means that if the belt breaks, the valves will hit the piston. And these little engines, in my truck, it's a 12-valve engine, so it's got 4 valves a cylinder, and it would do a lot of damage if the timing belt broke. The second thing is to check all the fluids, maybe replace the fluids that are in the gearbox and the front and the back axle housing, and replace that as well. Now, I'm pretty happy with my little truck, that I think it actually has been looked after quite well. Even just looking at the interior, when I picked up the truck, was quite good. The seats were okay, they weren't ripped, there wasn't a lot of wear on the pedals, and I think that the person that had this little truck in Japan looked after it. But that's not always the case in every truck. So do your research, look into it, and you know, be particular and be prepared to say, no, that's not the one for me, if it doesn't look exactly right. Anyway, that's today's video, everybody. I do appreciate you watching the video on replacing the timing belt. I do appreciate everybody watching the video, supporting the channel. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.